Hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of our venture in the visual novel If My Heart Had Wings Flight Diary. In the last episode, quite the events that took place thereof. First and foremost is we got to a little bit of better understanding of how Haruka operates within the club, as she at one point actually attempts a kind of a therapy function with Harumi as a means to try to cure his nauseous type of state when he's flying by doing some type of, I'm assuming, acupuncture, where she puts pressure at the palm of his hand, supposedly to actually help mitigate that particular condition. And then after that, she wanders off, to which Harumi, of course, is completely stunned as to that. But, high school, maybe a few things going on here and there, to which some of the other characters, they actually catch that. It's like, wow, you just take his hand out of nowhere. It's like, do you have a thing for him? Does he have a thing for her? So they end up teasing Harumi quite a bit in that regard. And then Kotori shared some light in her own experience as a means to help Harumi, which right now we don't necessarily even really have concrete proof that the two, Harumi and Haruka, are even interested in each other. But she goes on to this long ramble, almost exaggeration of her experiences with Aoi, how she fell in love with him, which was in the middle of a flight, and even mentioning how she was severely ill and that Aoi had flew her to the hospital, which any of us who know anything about a glider and all that stuff, that's almost impossible, if not absolutely impossible to do in stormy weather. And also, where's your runway length as a means to land the darn thing? And then how long are you going to overshoot? How would Aoi know all this stuff? But anyways, Aoi snapped her out of it in a way I don't recommend anyone should do, which was a chop to the head, to which at that point, of course, to which Kotori was just like, will you just let me brag about you a little bit? But anyways, after that was all resolved and whatnot, the crew had set out to get some ice cream after everything was over throughout the day. And then, of course, they said their goodbyes as it was time to go back home. And then later on the next day, Aoi and Harumi were just kind of shooting the breeze. And Harumi was teaching Aoi how to kind of dribble a basketball and things like that. But they eventually went back into the hangar, to which Izuka had came to visit them. And at that point, there was a discussion about a specific problem that the Soaring Club is experiencing. So that's where we left off last time. So let's load that scene up again and let's see what that problem is and let's see if they can resolve it. Here we go. All right, let's see what we got here. Kotori and the others had been talking about the serious problem the Soaring Club was facing. It was a chronic issue, one that had faced the club since long ago. Yep, I figured as much. Club survival was just what it sounded like. The Soaring Club had been nearly disbanded time and time again. But each time, thanks to everyone's efforts, it had been saved. To be perfectly honest, it was a bit of a stretch to make it a school club at all in the first place. Mostly due to cost and, of course, Mr. Tobioka's key concern, safety. Neither of those issues could be completely cleared away. That was actually our biggest bottleneck. We didn't have an instructor for our club. We had licensed supervisors for our weekly flights, but only one glider. Flight time was short because we could only fly after school, and that was because our supervisor taught their own club on the weekends. And either Kotori and I, being licensed, had to fly along, so individual member practice time was really short. All this meant it was essentially impossible to get licensed through club activity alone. The only other option was to take the train 2 hours to the airfield for classes, like I had done, which also cost a lot of money. Not to mention time. We'd already had members quit because the barriers were just too high. If you didn't want a pilot's license, then being in our club meant sitting through dull lectures and helping with maintenance. For those members, the only reward was to get to ride in the back seat for a single flight a week.
今まではどうしてたわけ？情熱でカバーしてました。
As Kotori said, we dealt with the problem with pure enthusiasm. In other words, our own hard work. We'd used money from our part-time jobs to cover glider operation costs. That was how I covered my pilot licensing costs too.
先輩たちがしてたような負担を普通の部員に求めるのは無理があると思います。
Seriously.
監督さんももう来られなくなっちゃいますしね。
Asa said, looking depressed. The person who'd been coming to supervise would have to stop next month for work reasons. It was sudden, but we couldn't complain since it had been basically volunteer work. We could only pay travel costs and a tiny fee. They had introduced us to someone else, but it didn't solve the fundamental problem. And there was no guarantee they'd continue after we graduated, since we were their only connection. The hangar was also a problem. And what did your grandfather say, Asa?
やる気次第じゃな。はははって言ってました。
Well, that's not very assuring, but whatever.
うちのおじいちゃん、私らには甘いけど、あれで結構シビアですから。
Asa and Yoru's grandfather was letting us use this place. He was the lead of the Keifu Academy board and supported the Soaring Club. But who knew what would happen after the twins graduated? These problems were nothing new. They had existed since long ago, even before Izuka had been the one to resurrect the club. In the end, the only reason the club existed was that our enthusiasm and good luck had somehow won out against the odds.
やはりここはあまねちゃんに習って私が残るしかないわね。
Don't you dare, Kotori. Don't you dare.
やめてください。迷惑ですから。だいたい残って何するつもりですか？決まってるじゃない。ソアリング部の魂を後輩たちに伝えていくのよ。そして学園から部を守っていくの。留年することをソアリング部の伝統みたいにしないでくださいね。姉さんが真似したら大変だわ。
Yeah, Asa, don't do that. Yoru sighed as she said this. It might have been a joke, but I was afraid it was actually something Kotori might do.
そっか。どこも大変なんだね。
So one of the lessons I would say could be taken out of this is there are some times where some things are just seasonal, and you have to be okay with those just being a seasonal thing, and then you move on to something else. But if we become so emotionally invested in something that we now cause our own lives to be counterproductive, that's a problem. Izuka stared at the disassembled glider, mumbling absent-mindedly.
もし機体が安く払い下げになったら教えてね。僕が買うから。私の目の黒いうちは絶対にそんなことさせません。
Oh, so even Kotori can bump heads with Izuka. How about that?
まあ、そうだよね。よし、ちょっと。
She was probably kidding anyway. Izuka plopped a convenience store bag on the table, mumbling all the while.
何ですかそれ？ね、小鳥ちゃんがアイス好きだって言ってたから。アイス！
Oh, that changed her mood quickly. But there was no ice cream on the table. There was ice, milk, sugar, salt, eggs, and a tiny bottle of vanilla extract. Oh, they gonna make it from scratch?
これでね、今からアイスクリームを作るよ。
Called it.
こんなのでアイスクリームが作れるんですか？
Oh yeah. That reminds me back in the day when I used to do that with my dad.
らしいんだよ。
It looked like Yoru had figured it out by looking at the ingredients.
みんな手伝って。なんだかわからないけど、やりましょう。遅くなってごめん。
What in the... What is going... What? That sounds very concerning.
って何やってんの？
Yeah, Asa, give me the 411 once you get it.
アゲハ、やっと来た。
When Aga came to the hangar, Harumi and I were spinning a large bath towel like a giant jump rope. Still?
あと1分です。
これきついです。
Okay.
頑張れ2人とも。何これ？少林寺の修行？
I guess.
アイスクリームを作ってるっすよ。はあ？タオル振り回して。はい、10分経ちました。
10 minutes? Are you kidding me? At what revolution?
よーし、もういいよ2人とも。
That is not how I remember making ice cream from scratch. I'm beat. Yep, that sounds accurate. Surprised y'all ain't dizzy. Spinning the towel had left us drenched in sweat. Izuka took a plastic bag from the towel and then took an aluminum can from that.
どれどれ？はあ！アイスになってる。
We'd mixed milk with egg yolk, sugar and other ingredients and put it in the can. Then we'd put the can in a bag with ice and salt. Then we'd wrap the bag in the towel, and Harumi and I had spun it for 10 minutes. When it came out, it was ice cream. Yeah, I don't remember that part. I remember two contraptions. Okay, two contraptions I remember. One of them was an actual motorized rotator, or an oscillator, if you will, right? So that would actually spin the mixing tool to actually churn the ice cream and whatnot. The other I remember is a hand-driven oscillator. So where did this method come from? Whatever. We really made ice cream?
魔法みたいです。
I wouldn't necessarily call it magic, Asa.
氷と塩を混ぜれば温度が0度以下になる。両具点効果を利用した簡単な理科の実験ね。
Yoru was, of course, right. Mixing ice with salt allows water to go below 0 degrees. It was effective enough to freeze water droplets outdoors in summer, even. Spinning the wrapped up mixture in that for a while had resulted in perfect ice cream.
食べよう食べよう。桐野さん、みんなにスプーン配って。はーい。どれどれ。あー、グレート。ほんとだ。甘い。へえ、あんな作り方でちゃんとアイスクリームになるんだね。でもこれ買ってきた方が早いし、 コスパ悪すぎなんじゃ。
Unless they just wanted to do something to pass the time. If they wanted to do something to pass the time, Yodoros, an activity that can build some memories, then it is a decent investment in that regard. So that's one way to look at it.
それじゃあこの味にはならないでしょ。隠し味はロマンなのだよ、ヨルち
See? That's what I was saying.
ゃん。はあ、ロマンですか。こんなとこで冷蔵庫もなしでアイスが作れちゃうなんて面白い。
We all knew what was in ice cream, but actually making it ourselves made it interesting. Izuka was right. This was more delicious than any ice cream we could have bought. So anyway, where have you been, Ageha?
そうだった。聞いてくれたまえよ、諸君。
Ageha put down her spoon and took on a serious tone. Everyone stood to attention, if reluctantly.
不肖姫ギアゲハ、内定いただきました。
Oh, really?
マジ？
Hey, finally!
おめでとうございます、アゲハ先輩。いやー、さすがに不安だったんだけど、さっき先生に呼ばれて内定の知らせが来たって。
Ageha was smiling in relief. An offer here meant a job offer. Since we were in senior year, we had to make plans for what we would do after graduation.
どんな会社なの？小さな町工場です。
Which, of course, had been Ageha's first choice. It was small, but it possessed unique technology and took orders for parts requiring special processing.
ものづくりの仕事に就きたくて、それであんちゃんに紹介してもらったんです。
Nice.
やったじゃない、アゲハ。頑張ってくださいね、アゲハ先輩。きっとすごい職人になると思いますよ、先輩なら。ありがとう。うおー、燃えてきたー。他の二人はどうなの？
Izuka asked with a spoon in her mouth. Kotori and I glanced at each other before I answered. We both planned to take university entrance exams. Keifu Academy was a technical school, but if students wanted to refine their knowledge even more, they could go on to university.
へえ、大学行くんだ。何の勉強するの？
I think I'd like to study design a little more.
私はシステム工学よ。小鳥は推薦もらってるから楽勝よね。
Nice. Top students could get special school endorsements if they wanted. So here's one other lesson for those out there, especially in school. The better you perform, the more opportunities you can get open to you. But one of the biggest thing is gain experience in the field that you want to actually pursue. Because as you gain experience, you can put that on your resume especially. And the more experience you have, that could possibly increase your chances of being considered. Because many companies are actually looking for experience. Then, of course, you also have to make sure that you have good references. Because if you have people that'll vouch for you, like what Ageha did with Tatsuya, when you have great references like that and people who can actually vouch for your demeanor, that also gets your foot in the door into things. Kotori was among those top students. For one thing, she was such a good programmer that she was able to custom program Amane's original flight simulator. Very nice.
あまねちゃんのコーディング汚い。読みづらい。わかりづらい。
Okay. Just work with it. Just work with it. But I understand how Kotori feels. As a audio technician, especially out in the field, there are times to where I actually get contacted and hired to assess audio systems in different venues to where the system is not operating as efficient as it once did. And I look at the parameters at times and I'm just like, what did these folks do? I'm literally sitting there in utter shock, like, why are they doing it like this? Eventually, I find out what the reason is, but ultimately, there's a better efficiency that is possible. But I'm just like, why? But usually the reason simply is because most of the folks don't know any better. That's really what it comes down to. Now, there are some cases where the folks don't know any better and they don't care that they don't know any better. That's where it kind of boils my blood, because at that point, they're impeding overall efficiency and performance, which impedes other people in the process. And that doesn't sit well with me.
そっか。みんなちゃんと将来のこと考えてるんだね。
As they should.
うー
Hey, Asa, there's still time. So, take the hint. Find out what you want to do.
ちょっと姉さん、なんでしょんぼりするのよ。だって、先輩たちいなくなっちゃうなんて寂しいんだもん。しょうがないじゃない。そんなこと言ってると、誰かさんが本気で留年しかねないわよ。しようか、留年。
No, don't you dare do it.
それはちょっと。
Thank you.
卒業しても時々遊びに来るから。はい。
Seeing Asa look so sad, it reminded me of when we found out Amane was leaving. I'm sure we looked the same.
さて、アゲハも来たことだし、機体の点検を始めましょうか。
Indeed. And let's see how that inspection goes on the next episode. But yeah, folks, it's very important to consider your futures at an early time and find out what you want to do early. And if you find out what you want to do, start pursuing that. Read books of information regarding it, gain experience, maybe doing some type of community services or getting involved in some type of volunteer group if you can. Just whatever that can be done, of course, safely and legally, please, that can help you gain experience in that particular field that you wish to pursue. That's very important for your future. And also gaining good references, having a good attitude, having a good demeanor. So the people that you think may not have anything to do with you, you got to be careful with that, because sometimes the people that you mess with in your young years, you may actually see them later on. And that can be a little edgy at times. Now, of course, there are protocols that forbids them from revenge and all that kind of stuff. But the issue is you don't want to put yourself in that position to begin with. So treat everybody as you would want to be treated, which is obviously respectfully. If you got a problem with someone, just say, hey, look, it doesn't look like our chemistry catalyzes, so let's just go our separate ways. There's no point in sticking around, insulting each other and all this other kind of crazy stuff. If the chemistry doesn't catalyze, just say, hey, look, let's just go our separate ways. So with that, I want to thank everyone for watching this video this time around. If you like what you saw, maybe consider leaving a like. And if you'd like to see more and you haven't already, maybe consider subscribing, and also be sure to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of the next productions to be released. And until next time, happy mixing, everyone.